Usually when you're watching a movie, let's say a disaster film or some big historical epic, there's always that one very specific scene right before the climax hit.
Oh, right. The calm before the storm.
Exactly. You kind of hit pause in your mind and you're just looking at this completely ordinary moment. People are, buying bread, laughing in a tavern, maybe just watching their dogs.
Yeah, it's living their life.
Right. But you, as the viewer, you possess this impossible knowledge of what is about to happen to them in the very next frame.
Okay, heavy feeling, yeah.
It really is. And that exact emotional weight, that impossible knowledge, well, that is our mission for today's deep dive. We are dropping you right into midnight on August 24th, 79 AD.
Which is, I mean, the absolute last ordinary night in Pompeii.
Okay.
And the psychological space this puts us in is just completely fascinating.
Oh, totally.
Because we aren't looking at ash, or plaster casts or excavated ruins. You're stepping into a living, breathing city at the absolute height of its vitality, surrounded by people who are entirely unaware that their world ends tomorrow morning.
I just love looking at history through that lens. It makes it so real. And to really feel the pulse of this city sleeping, you kind of have to start by standing right in the middle of its main artery.
Yeah, the Via dell'Abbondanza, the street of abundance.
Right. If you were standing here like 12 hours earlier, you'd be absolutely deafened by the chaotic wave of carts and horses, merchants yelling, slaves running errands.
Oh, it would be overwhelming.
Completely. And the air would just be this thick collision of smells, raw fish, imported spices, a lot of sweat, really heavy perfumes. But right now, at midnight, it is perfectly, flawlessly still.
It's almost eerie, right? And in that midnight stillness, the sheer physical reality of the ancient world really comes into focus. Like, just look at the street beneath your feet.
It's not what people expect, is it?
Not at all. These aren't your standard cute little cobblestones. They are massive flat blocks of volcanic basalt, and they're worn down to a mirror shine by, centuries of leather sandals and wooden cartwheels.
Wow, centuries.
Yeah. And because it's late August, even in the middle of the night, those dark stones are actually still radiating the deep warmth of the sun that they absorbed all day long.
Oh, I love that detail. That radiant heat against the cool night air. It's just such a comforting image. And the smells are totally different at night, too, right?
So, completely.
Like you walk past a bakery, and even with the heavy wooden shutters pulled tightly down, you catch that warm, yeasty, undeniable smell of resting dough. It's just the universal smell of home.
Yeah, it really grounds you in the humanity of the place.
Exactly. You pass a closed wine shop with rows of clay amphorae stacked outside, tops heavily sealed with wax. You pass a tailor shop, and through a gap in the slats, you can see a half-finished toga just draped over a bench, just waiting for the morning.
Right, the mundane details of life.
But looking at the street itself, there's a detail that always makes me laugh. Set into the road at regular intervals are these large raised stepping stones. Honestly, looking at them, it looks like an ancient, highly practical game of the floor is lava.
Well, I mean, it literally was the floor's lava, just a very different and much grosser kind of lava.
Wait, grosser? Oh, because of the sewage.
Exactly. Pompeii's streets were an engineering marvel, but they doubled as the city's drainage system.
Right.
During the day, water from the public fountains constantly overflowed to wash the streets, and that mixed with animal waste, refuse, rain. The gutters were essentially open sewers.
Okay, ew. So the stones were, so you didn't ruin your shoes.
Right. Those raised blocks allowed pedestrians to cross from one sidewalk to the other without ruining their tunics or stepping in the muck.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the really brilliant part, the specific spacing between the blocks wasn't random. It was standardized, so the wheels of Roman carts could pass perfectly right through the gaps while the axles cleared the stones.
No way. That's incredibly clever urban engineering for 2,000 years ago.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
Now, here's where my mental image of antiquity completely shatters. When I picture walking through ancient Pompeii or, any Roman city, my brain immediately paints everything in stark white marble or pale gray stone.
Like a pristine museum exhibit.
Exactly. But if you're actually standing there in the moonlight, it's not white at all, is it? Did they just, use cheap paint to cover up the brick?
Oh, no, not at all. That stark white marble aesthetic we associate with antiquity. It's actually a total Renaissance myth.
Wait, really? A myth?
Yeah. The Renaissance artists dug up statues that had simply lost their paint to time, and they just assumed that bare marble was the deliberate style.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, in reality, the Romans abhorred a visual vacuum. They painted absolutely everything.
So the city was actually really colorful.
Extremely. The walls of these 2- and 3-story buildings, which were made of volcanic stone and brick, they were covered in smooth plaster and painted in deep, vibrant reds, warm yellows, rich ochres.
That's beautiful.
And the moonlight softens those colors right now, in the middle of the night, but it doesn't erase them.
So it wasn't just to hide the building materials, it was like an actual cultural preference for vibrancy.
I'd say it was more than a preference. Color was the ultimate signal of life to the Romans. It meant something mattered, that a space was inhabited and cared for. They even painted their faces at festivals.
Wow.
And as you walk down this painted street, that vibrancy extends to the spiritual life of the city too. At almost every crossroads, and beside dozens of doorways, you see these small shrines set directly into the plaster walls.
Yes. The ones with the massive twisting serpents painted at the bottom. And they usually have a low-burning oil lamp flickering in the night air right above them.
Exactly.
Now, I know they are shrines to the household gods. But honestly, if I'm a modern person standing there, it just looks a bit spooky. Like, who exactly are they praying to in the middle of the street at midnight?
Well, they're paying respects to the Laures and Penedes. And this is really crucial to understanding the Roman worldview.
Okay, unpack that for me.
They didn't see the physical world as dead matter. They believed the world was fundamentally animate. The Penedes were specifically the guardians of the storeroom and the pantry.
Which is pretty important back then.
Extremely important.
Yeah.
Because in the ancient world, if your food spoiled, your family could literally starve.
Right. And what about the Lares?
The Lares protected the boundaries of the home and the crossroads. Every single place had its own genius loci.
A genius loci, like a local spirit.
Yeah, an invisible guardian spirit or unique quality of being specific to that exact location.
So you aren't just living in a physical grid of streets, you're navigating a spiritually dense landscape. When you stand at that midnight crossroads in Pompeii, you aren't just a solitary person alone in the dark.
Not at all.
You are standing in the recognized presence of the street's ancient, watchful spirit.
Exactly. It completely changes the psychology of being out at night.
Yeah.
You are accompanied.
Which perfectly explains why this city feels so incredibly alive even while it sleeps. But, not everyone is asleep. Following the subtle curve of the street, you naturally gravitate toward a faint, warm glow of lamplight and the low murmur of voices. You move out of the quiet spiritual night and into the warm communal heartbeat of the city.
Ah, yes. You've arrived at what the Romans called a thermopolium.
Right, which is basically, well, think of it as the ancient equivalent of a 24-hour diner, right?
Yeah, or like a fast food street kitchen. It is the great equalizer of Roman nightlife.
See, I always pictured ancient Romans endlessly lounging on plush couches, having grapes fed to them by servants.
That's the Hollywood version.
Right. But this is just regular people grabbing a late-night bite. Why was street food so dominant in their culture, though?
It really comes down to urban density and fire hazard.
Oh, fire hazards.
Yeah. The wealthy elite absolutely had those lavish dining rooms you're picturing. But the vast majority of Pompeii's citizens lived in insulae, which were multi-story apartment blocks.
Okay, so kind of like modern apartment buildings.
Sort of. But building a private kitchen with an open fire in a cramped, wooden-framed apartment was incredibly dangerous. It was a massive fire risk for the whole block.
Oh, of course. One spark and the whole building goes up.
Exactly. So the lower and middle classes relied entirely on these thermopolia for hot meals.
Yeah.
They were the absolute lifeblood of the city.
That makes total sense. It's necessity driving the culture.
Yeah.
So you walk up to this one, and torches are flickering on the plastered walls. Behind a long, L-shaped stone counter stands the owner.
Yeah.
He's this broad-shouldered, 50-year-old guy who has clearly overseen 1,000 nights exactly like this one, and built directly into his counter are these enormous terracotta jars.
The dolia, yeah. Set right into the masonry to keep the food warm.
Right, dolia. And the menu is deeply hearty Mediterranean comfort food. It sounds incredible.
It really does.
Those vats are holding thick lentil stew, fragrant with herbs. There are roasted vegetables glistening with olive oil, mounds of green and black olives.
And don't forget the wine.
Oh, the wine. And they aren't just pouring regular fermented grape juice. It's warm, heavily spiced wine. It probably tastes intensely of cinnamon or black pepper, honey, maybe some resin.
Yeah, Mulsum or Calda. And notice the social cross-section sitting around you in the glow of those torches.
Who are we looking at?
Well, there's a young soldier in a wool tunic staring silently into his cup. You've got two women talking quietly in the corner, occasionally laughing, an old man eating alone with just intense methodical concentration. Like we said, it's the great equalizer.
But the detail that really grounds the humanity of the moment for me is the 12-year-old boy working there.
Oh, yeah.
He's bringing out the bread, and he is practically asleep on his feet, just deeply physically exhausted. And he's serving these round loaves of bread that are already scored into 8 sections before baking, like the spokes of a wheel.
That scoring is a brilliant touch of Roman practicality, actually.
Because you don't have to cut it.
Right, you don't need a knife. It's designed to be instantly broken apart by hand and shared among a table of strangers or friends.
It's just exhausted people seeking a little warmth and sustenance before bed. And, that pursuit of warmth kind of drives the entire culture. Because from the diner, you follow the sound of echoing water to a complex that was already 200 years old on this night in 79 AD.
The Stabian Baths.
Yes.
The fact that it was 200 years old is staggering. To the people using it that night, it was already an ancient, venerable institution.
You walk inside, and the visual luxury is stunning. You're standing under vaulted ceilings painted in deep blues and greens. It's all illuminated by golden lamplight reflecting off the water.
It must have been gorgeous.
And the floors are these incredibly precise, mathematically perfect mosaics. You're literally walking over intricate patterns of dolphins, octopuses, and seahorses frozen in millions of tiny stone tiles.
And what's happening here is a highly sophisticated, almost ritualistic progression of temperature.
Right, it's not just a quick shower.
No, you don't just jump into a hot tub. First, you enter the frigidarium, the cold room. The central pool looks like cool liquid silver in the lamplight. It's designed to shock the nervous system, to wake up the skin.
That sounds intense.
It is. But then, you step through an arched doorway into the tepidarium, the warm room, and the air here is entirely different.
How so?
It's soft, gentle, and alive with moisture, sort of like the air inside a botanical greenhouse. It begins to melt all the physical tension out of your muscles.
Okay, I love a good warm room, but here is where my modern brain gets stuck. You move from that warm room into the caldarium, the aggressively hot room.
Right, the steam room, basically.
Yeah, the heat is total. It completely envelops you as you lower yourself into a large stone basin of steaming water. But if I'm trying to figure this out, I'm just assuming slaves are constantly boiling water in cauldrons somewhere and running it out in buckets to refill the pool.
That would be exhausting.
Exactly. How do you keep a massive room and a massive pool of water that hot around the clock without modern electric heaters?
Well, you're touching on one of the greatest technological achievements of antiquity, the hypocaust system.
Hypocaust.
Yeah, they weren't carrying buckets. The Romans actually engineered a way to heat the entire building from the inside out. They built the solid stone floors of these hot rooms, entirely elevated on top of hundreds of small brick pillars.
Wait, so you're walking on a suspended stone floor like it's hollow underneath?
Exactly. It creates a hollow, basement-like space underneath the entire floor. And outside the room, in service corridors the bathers never saw, slaves were continuously feeding roaring fires into large furnaces.
Okay.
The intense hot air and thick smoke from those furnaces were channeled directly into that hollow space beneath the floorboards. The solid stone floor absorbs that heat and radiates it upward into the room, directly heating the water in the basins from the bottom up.
Wait. If there's a massive fire pumping smoke under the floor, how did the bathers not choke on carbon monoxide? Where did the smoke go?
That's the genius part. The walls of the room were lined with hollow terracotta pipes called tubulae.
Oh, so the walls were hollow too.
Exactly. The hot air and smoke traveled under the floor, then drafted up through these hollow walls, heating the walls themselves like giant radiators, before venting safely out of the roof.
That is just brilliant.
You're essentially sitting inside a perfectly engineered oven that warms you from every conceivable angle.
That's incredible, but it also sets up a detail that genuinely gave me goosebumps when I was reviewing the material.
Oh, the sound.
Yes. If you sit quietly in that steaming water, you can hear the mechanics of it. You can hear the low, constant rumble of those subterranean furnaces deep in the building. It sounds like distant thunder or, the heavy breathing of something enormous, something patient, something that has been burning for a very long time in the dark beneath you.
The irony is almost too heavy to bear.
It really is.
That deep subterranean rumble of fire beneath the floorboards of the bathhouse is the perfect auditory mirror for the magma chamber, rumbling beneath the crust of the earth just a few miles away.
It's chilling.
The Romans were masters of harnessing nature for their own comfort. They harnessed fire to warm their bodies, completely insulated from the reality that the earth's fire was about to consume them.
Wow. They were sitting right on top of the mechanism of their own destruction, just thinking it was a furnace they controlled.
Yeah.
From that heavy, enveloping heat of the public baths, you finally step back out into the night air. We're moving from public indulgence to profound, private peace now.
The gardens.
Exactly. You wander into an older, wealthier part of the city. The streets are much narrower here, and the air is noticeably cooler. And through a slightly open, heavy wooden gate, you encounter a hidden, private Roman garden.
The contrast here is so vital to the Roman experience. The baths were communal, echoing, full of architecture and engineering. But this garden is impeccably silent, save for the sound of a single, trickling fountain.
And the moment you approach the gate, the smells hit you in a wave. It's medicinal, sweet lavender mixed with the rich, heavy scent of night-blooming roses. I know lavender is popular now, but the Romans basically considered it a wonder herb.
Right. Oh, absolutely. They used it for everything, washing, cooking, medicine. But specifically, they cultivated it heavily in domestic gardens because they believed its scent brought deep, untroubled sleep.
Well, it certainly works for me. And as you step inside, you can see this space is meticulously loved. The dirt paths are perfectly swept. The rose bushes are carefully, deliberately trained through iron rings set into the walls.
It's very controlled nature.
Very. In the center, that small white stone fountain is carved in the shape of a river god, pouring a single, constant, unbroken thread of water into a marble basin.
This garden perfectly reflects the Roman psychological need for order. They didn't want wild nature. They wanted a sanctuary of civilized calm, a piece of nature that they had mastered and contained within their urban walls.
Beside a stone bench, there's a fig tree that just radiates that smell of late summer abundance. Next to it, a lemon tree is heavy with fruit. In the moonlight, the lemons look like small suns holding onto the daylight so it isn't lost.
That's a beautiful image.
You sit on that stone bench and you look up through the dark, broad leaves of the fig tree at the night sky. Now, when I look at the stars today, knowing what we know about astrophysics, I usually just feel a sense of existential dread.
Really, just dread.
Yeah, I feel incredibly small, like a speck of dust in a vast, cold, indifferent void. But the Romans didn't feel that way looking up, did they?
Not at all. If we look at ancient cosmology, the Romans didn't view the night sky as a terrifying infinite vacuum. They viewed it as a protective canopy.
Like an overarching storybook.
Precisely. They believed the gods deliberately hung the stars up there like lanterns. Their purpose was to remind travelers, to remind the people sleeping below, that they were never truly alone.
Oh, wow.
The sky was densely populated with their own myths, their ancestral heroes, their gods. It wasn't an empty void. It was an intimate, fully known space that watched over them.
That is profoundly comforting, to look at the infinite and see your own stories looking back. And right as you were tracing those constellations, you hear an owl call out just once in the dark.
Ah, the owl.
Yeah, a single, low, questioning note from somewhere beyond the garden wall.
The owl is the perfect creature for this moment in the timeline. To the Romans, the owl wasn't just a nocturnal bird. It was a liminal creature.
Liminal meaning.
It navigated the boundaries. It moved between the world of the living and the world of dreams, between the known and the unknown. Hearing it in the garden is a quiet reminder that we are sitting precisely on a boundary in time.
Which perfectly brings us to the macro view. From the enclosed safety of that hidden garden, you let your feet guide you upward, toward the highest terraces in the northern part of the city. You step out to look over the entirety of Pompeii.
This is where the sheer tragedy of the historical reality catches up with the peacefulness of the night.
Yeah. You stand on a high terrace, and you look down at a grid of 1,000 fading lamps. You see the Bay of Naples, dark and vast, with merchant ships sleeping at anchor, rocking gently in the tide. And then you turn north.
And there it is.
Mount Vesuvius. It's enormous, rising like a black wall above the rooftops. The city below you is deeply, peacefully asleep, but the mountain above them is waking up.
And the slopes of the mountain are incredibly lush. They're covered in the very vineyards that produced the spiced wine the city was drinking down in the Thermopylae an hour ago.
That's just wild to think about.
And if you look at the summit, it is wrapped in a faint, swirling haze. To the locals, that haze is just regular cloud cover or, coastal mist. They think of it poetically as the breath of the mountain.
But it's not mist.
No, they are right. It is breathing.
Mm-hmm.
but it is the breath of a geological giant preparing to rupture the Earth.
See, I've always struggled with this blind spot. I always thought, why didn't they run when it started smoking? Surely they felt the earthquakes leading up to this. Wouldn't massive tremors tip them off that a mountain was about to explode?
They absolutely felt earthquakes. In fact, a massive earthquake had severely damaged Pompeii 17 years earlier, and they were still rebuilding from it.
Okay, so they knew the ground was unstable.
That they did. But we have to understand their scientific paradigm. They blamed earthquakes on volatile winds trapped in subterranean caverns trying to escape.
Wind, not magma.
They had absolutely no concept of magma, and more importantly, they literally did not have a word for volcano in the Latin language.
Wait, really? They didn't even have the vocabulary for it.
Precisely. You cannot fear what your culture cannot even conceptualize. To them, Vesuvius wasn't a threat. It was as eternal, unchangeable, and benevolent as the stars they looked at. It provided their wine, their fertile soil, their visual anchor. They trusted it implicitly.
That is a staggering psychological trap. From that high terrace, carrying that heavy knowledge, you walk back down into the city, drawn by a faint glow, and you find yourself stepping into the large, open-air theater of Pompeii.
The theater was the emotional heart of the city.
It's completely empty now, carved from cool gray stone that has been worn completely smooth by 3 centuries of audiences.
It was an architectural acoustic marvel, built to collect, hold, and amplify human feeling. But what's most striking here is that these massive structures had absolutely no roofs.
Exactly. The sky was the roof. They built them open to the elements because they deeply understood that the sky is the greatest, most dramatic theater of all.
That's a great way to put it.
You sit alone in the middle of these curved stone tiers. The acoustics are so perfect that the only thing you hear is the night wind moving through the stone, sounding almost like a distant choir. You sit in the dark, watching the stars perform their slow, ancient show, suspended between the empty stone stage below and the eternal sky above. It feels like the entire city is holding you in its hands.
It is the ultimate moment of pause. It's the deep, final breath before the dawn.
And that dawn is coming. We move into the hour the Romans called dell'Aquilum, the first glimmering.
It's a very specific time of night.
Yeah, it's that extremely specific, deeply quiet window of time between the dead of night and the absolute beginning of morning. The sky softens from the deepest black to a dark, bruising blue. It is the coldest part of the night.
And in that profound, heavy quiet, the first sound of the new day arrives. It's a single blackbird singing from a terracotta rooftop.
That detail is so deeply moving to me. The blackbird sings before there is any physical proof of light. It possesses this absolute unshakable faith that the dawn is coming simply because it always has.
Right.
And slowly, a chorus of other birds joins in. The stars begin to fade out at the edges of the horizon, and then you smell it.
The bakeries.
The bakeries, the heavy wooden shutters roll up, the first massive brick ovens are fired, the smell of fresh warm bread rises out into the cool blue air.
The day's beginning.
Exactly as it has for 400 years. People are stirring from their beds, reaching for their tunics, stepping right back into the absolute certainty of their daily routines, completely unaware that this is the last morning their world will ever see.
Which brings us to the core of why a deep dive like this is so gripping. When we pull back from Pompeii and look at our own lives, it really highlights the profound fragility of our daily routines.
It really does.
We walk our streets, we eat in our cafes, we tend our gardens, assuming that the ground beneath our feet is a permanent fixture. Pompeii's last night reminds us that there is immense, overlooked beauty in the ordinary. In the smell of baking bread, the engineering of a hot bath, or the quiet order of a garden, precisely because it is fragile.
It makes you wonder. If the Romans lived their entire lives entirely blind to the volcano looming over them simply because they lacked the word for it, what permanent comforting structures in our modern world do we trust implicitly? What is our mountain, and what do we lack the vocabulary to fear? It's something to think about the next time you look at the horizon. If you enjoyed this journey through time, subscribe to Lost Worlds for Sleep for more immersive sleep stories.